Module 8. In this module, we will be taking a look at our formative assessment resources for mathematics. We'll take a look at My Numeracy, our curriculum worksheets and where they can be downloaded, our learning goals hover, which allows the teacher to have class feedback about how we're going with our learning goals or proficiencies in My Numeracy, where our Learn videos are located, and also look at our learning apps for maths, which are Sunset Maths and Jetpack Algebra. Within My Numeracy, the students will complete 20 questions, which will be broken into 5 questions for each of the mathematical proficiencies, 5 for understanding, then 5 questions for fluency, problem solving, and reasoning. This poster is really helpful for the students to understand which proficiencies and which questions are related. And the goal is a trophy. So the students will receive a trophy if they achieve 80% or greater for these 20 questions. If they do not receive the trophy, they will see the percentage, and it will also reflect on their screens which stars have been coloured in or which stars have more work to go. Students can be unlocked to have a second attempt at My Numeracy from the teacher dashboard. So this is all possible when we are allocating our My Numeracy back to our students. Let's take a look on our platform at our My Numeracy and learning apps. Here we are on our class dashboard. So our My Numeracy must be turned on if we want our students to access our My Numeracy activities. If you don't wish the assessments from Managed Class Assessments to be visible, you can turn assessments off. My Numeracy is located underneath our formative assessment on our student login portal, so you can show students where to access it through the student portal, which is here. But before we check our student portal, we must make sure something is turned on in our managed class assessments. So if you're delivering formative assessment through pre-assessment data that you've collected, such as the common grade, this must remain in the set position. Generally, we recommend turning off assessments once you're completed with them so that students don't see a whole lot of things on their dashboard. You won't lose the data. You can always click back into that and see the data. The coloured plus button is the shortcut to My Numeracy. So these coloured plus buttons take us straight to our My Numeracy. Otherwise, you can access My Numeracy through View Class Results. So let's take a look here. So we've got this in the set position. Our My Numeracy is turned on and we tap the coloured plus button. Now, usually when we come in to our My Numeracy straight after we have completed a pre-assessment, the students will be allocated a whole lot of activities based on their misunderstandings. So anywhere there is a red or an orange square, there will be an activity allocated. As you can imagine, sometimes this is really overwhelming for students to be presented with all of the activities in one hit, particularly for the New South Wales Common Grade, because this is a whole year's worth of work. So what we are mindful of is cognitive load, so we can remove these activities and then give them back when we are ready to, as we want it to align with our class teaching. We can filter down to look at various elements through the focus area, through the substrand drop down. But what we're going to be mindful of is that we've taught particular elements. So let's come back to our Year 3 cohort that we are teaching. And sometimes we'll be allocating My Numeracy below grade level because we want to check in, have they really got consolidation of that particular element. But for now, let's look at the highlighted elements. When we hover over it, we'll identify the outcomes and the 4 proficiencies with the I can statements. So if I've spent some time teaching my whole class about using number facts to make number sentences that are equal, I can now send that activity out to everyone in my class, regardless of whether they were red or green, because at the pre-assessment, they only have 1 or 2 questions around that concept. If I've done whole class explicit teaching and I really want to drill into those proficiencies, we can allocate at the whole class level. But sometimes we'll be mindful that that may be too difficult for particular students, so we can remove that from them and give them one that is more appropriate for them. So as long as we are mindful that it can be individualised and differentiated. If I want to see what the questions are going to be delivered to the students, we can click on the preview box, and we can also download the curriculum worksheet if required to work with particular students that may not show success. But we always start with the online version first, unless particular students need that curriculum worksheet instead of doing the activity online. Clicking on our box will open up the activity where we can see exactly the 20 questions for this My Numeracy. So the question is always at the top, as is shown in the assessments. We have the I don't know yet button. The students will also have access to a sketch pad, and the only difference is in My Numeracy, being formative assessment, students can access a learn video. The learn video is to ensure that students can look back or consolidate their learning if they are still in the learning pit. If they get a question incorrect, if we turn on real-time feedback on our My Numeracy dashboard, we will be able to have that video launched each time the students get a question incorrect. You can scroll through and see the questions for each of the proficiencies. So once we hit question 6, it's fluency. You can use those learn videos if you want to model some of those thinking with your students, because they are all embedded there and always accessible to you. So we've got our fluency from question 11, problem solving, and from question 16 we have reasoning. Let's cross out of that now so we can allocate that to our class and obviously differentiate where we need to. But once we have our students submitted that activity, we can see, and when we hover over this preview box, our whole class results. So we usually only just scroll down to share that with our class. It'll give a percentage of how much understanding was across our class, and it will give you a coloured in stars to show where we were successful with our proficiencies, and if there's gaps or blank stars, it will show us where we may need to do a bit more teaching. Then you've got that option to click on the curriculum worksheet and download that particular downloadable worksheet, which is also broken up into those mathematical proficiencies. So sometimes we'll just use a particular element to do some follow-up teaching with our class or with particular groups or individual students. So it's all there available for you. The biggest tip is to not let our students just work through their My Numeracy at their own pace, because it really is designed as a formative assessment check-in after they've been delivered the teaching. So then we can measure the success of what they've learnt and how we've delivered the teaching. So now that it's allocated here, and we know that the managed class assessments has been set for that, where we know the formative assessment is being allocated. So if you're doing allocating based on focus area assessments, you have to turn those particular elements on. When we use our My Numeracy drop down, please turn My Numeracy on. You can access certificates for your students through this next tab as they complete activities. This will force the My Learning videos to pop up between every 5 questions. So if you wish to do that for your students, you can turn that on. But the best purpose of the videos is around feedback. So if you just turn on the real-time feedback, that will only force up the videos if they need them. They can still always access the videos at any time. Student reset is not really helpful for teachers if they want to view the data as students submit, because if students are allowed to reset, they'll just quickly reset and try and guess their way through rather than trying to get that additional teaching from their teacher. And we don't need to turn the continuum order on if we've removed all of those activities, which was the unset all button. So that does not need to be on. The learning library is a separate function of allocating learn videos. So that will come up in another module. So you only turn that on if you're allocating a playlist of learning videos to your students. The learning videos are always available and accessible to teachers up here through the learning library. Let's take a quick look now at our learning apps. We don't turn our learning apps on until we've set them up. In Sunset Maths, when we first come in, it will all be turned on. This, once again, is too much for our students. They don't build their fluency or automaticity unless we just strategically turn on the zone we want them to work on. So, for example, if we've been working on multiplication, just leave that particular zone on. The students will start here, back here, where they're 1 year below their grade level. We can change the starting level for particular students. Sometimes you can go lower if it's available or higher, but generally we like them to start where it's easy and with success. We can also turn the timer off. This is a game where the sun sets and they've got to try and input the answer before the sun sets. So you can turn that timer off if there's particular students who won't cope with that timed element. Best practice is to just deliver one learning app at a time, so students really focus in on that element. And when you're ready then to open up the next one, turn that one off. And if you're doing algebra, for example, with your class, algebraic principles start from kindy, so you can click open and see where would I like to start my students' journey. Always start where it's easy, but it does start from kindy and the kids love this game, so you can start them right back at those basic principles if you choose to. If you tap the plus, it will allocate everyone to start at a particular point on that jetpack journey. So one learning app on at a time is best practice. We'll unpack the spelling at another later time. And that is our formative assessment. There we do have a complete webinar on our learning apps in our webinars tab and our My Numeracy for further learning. Thank you.